The Blue Jackets got a massive 2 points against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The first time ever that they've won both of their games in Pittsburgh in a season. Can they keep it rolling, though? We discuss on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. And thanks for making us the number one sports podcast network. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wildcard round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Lots to talk about in this episode. We have to talk about that big win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. However, we also have to talk about the injuries that keep on piling up. Blue Jackets might be getting some guys back soon, which is promising, but Dante Fabbro is out for at least a week, they say. So we're going to talk about that. And I also want to talk about Dmitri Voronkov's in-game demotion and then demotion at practice earlier today. And we have to talk about the Ottawa Senators, who are the next game on the docket. So lots to talk about. Let's see if we can fit it all in. Blue Jackets win in Pittsburgh. Every single game of this series, all four of them, went past regulation, and the away team won. Sometimes hockey is a weird sport. Hockey is always a weird sport, but this one is kind of a fun one. Don't love that it went to overtime again, but hey, shootout. The Blue Jackets have been good in the shootout all season. The Penguins have been pretty weak in the shootout all season. Blue Jackets did really well to get it to overtime. And I think this was, again, and I talked about this a little bit on Twitter and got some varying responses to it, right? And some people agreed and some people kind of didn't disagree necessarily, but had thoughts on the Blue Jackets play in Pittsburgh, right? Like, so the Blue Jackets have been leading in the third period every single game versus the Penguins, and it's gone to overtime every single time. The Penguins have forced overtime all four times. Now, the first three, I think, were pretty egregious blown leads, right? Like, the first one, I think, was a blow. They were up by 2 with like 5 minutes left. The second game, they were leading after 2. They were leading by 2 after the second period. And then in the third, and again, potentially most egregious game, they were up 4-1, and then Pittsburgh tied the game with 12 seconds left after, again, another third period meltdown. In this one, it was a lot more even, I thought. I believe it was the Blue Jackets opened the scoring, and then the Penguins scored twice to make it 2-1, and then the Blue Jackets scored twice to make it 3-2 them. And then with like a minute left, the Penguins forced overtime again. So like on the surface, yeah, a blown lead. But I don't know. And I called it a blown lead when I was tweeting about it, but I don't think it necessarily is a blown lead, right? Like, and I think I actually said at the time, Sidney Crosby is going to do Sidney Crosby things, right? Like that was a really hard fought goal for them, right? And it wasn't in my opinion anyway, it wasn't a breakdown of any kind from the Blue Jackets. It wasn't, the tying goal in the second most recent game, so the third game of the series, where Rickard Rakell scored with like 12 seconds left. That was really egregious to me because it felt like there was like 4 Blue Jackets just kind of standing around admiring the pass that Crosby made to Rakell before the puck went in. This one, they win the face-off, and then Chris Letang just passes it like a slap pass. Like, it looks like a shot that's going to miss the mark, and Crosby buries it, right? Again, Crosby gonna Crosby. I wonder how many times over the past 20 years have we seen those two players connect like that, right? It is what it is. It was a great goal for them. Like, I hate to give Pittsburgh any credit, but this was Pittsburgh fighting back and taking that extra point, as opposed to the Blue Jackets just kind of handing them the extra point, which I think has been the case in all 3 of these games previous. So, like I said, I'm not thrilled to give Pittsburgh another point. Like, that's 6 points, I believe, that they've handed Pittsburgh when they very easily could have handed them 0 points. Penguins are 5 points ahead of them in the standings, I believe, or 4 points ahead of them in the standings as of the time of recording this. Like, if you don't give them those 6 points and you, in fact, take 2 of those extra points that you lost in the overtime losses, the Blue Jackets would actually be probably in the Penguins situation. The Penguins will be in the Blue Jackets situation. Obviously, that's not really how it works, but like, frustrated to give them a point in this one. But this to me was the least egregious overtime. Like, this was the one where I'm like, yeah, no, actually, that this game should go to overtime, right? Again, I get it. It's frustrating because of how the rest of the games in this series have gone, but I thought that this one was probably the best game that these teams have played this season. It was the most even one, I think. The Penguins, I think outplayed the Blue Jackets in some areas. I think the Blue Jackets didn't have like I said, they didn't have that like third period meltdown necessarily. They did have what was, I thought, a brutal first period. That like they were lucky to get out of that 2-1, down 2-1 in my opinion. Like they got outshot 10-4 in the first period. I believe the Blue Jackets didn't have a shot on goal for the last like 12 minutes of the first period. And then they came out, and I guess, I don't know that they got yelled at necessarily. I don't think Rick Bowness is a yeller in the same way that Dean Evason was a yeller. But they got a talking to, I would imagine. I don't know if you can hear the capital T's on talking to, but my guess is it's an I'm not mad, I'm disappointed talk from Rick Bowness, and they managed to outshoot the Penguins 13-8 in the second period. Third period was more balanced. It was 8-6 with final shots for Pittsburgh, and then overtime. Pittsburgh really, the shots on goal for Pittsburgh in overtime feel kind of inflated. Like, they definitely did have 6 shots on goal, but I feel like 4 of them happened in about a 2.5 second span. Right, so I don't know that they dominated in overtime as much as the shot count looks like they did, but that again was a reason why the shots on goal are so kind of lopsided. So the Penguins had 32 shots on goal, the Blue Jackets had 25 shots on goal. I'm just going to pull up the shot attempt. I normally have Natural Stat Trick open, and I didn't. So Locked On Blue Jackets bingo card if you are playing along at home. The final score in terms of shot attempts was 53 to the Penguins, 43 to the Blue Jackets at even strength. Gets a little bit more lopsided in if you go to all situations. The Penguins ended up having 79 shot attempts. 5 on 5. So that wouldn't count overtime with the 5 on 5 numbers. If you go to even strength, it's a little bit more stark for the Penguins. They had 71 shot attempts and 49 against. They created almost 4.5 expected goals. So Elvis saved about a goal and a half more than he should have done. Shilov's allowed about a goal more than he should have done. The Blue Jackets mustered about 2.25 expected goals and scored 3 plus the shootout. So should the Blue Jackets have won this game? Probably not. But I liked a lot of what I saw for like long stretches of the game. Like, it got a little bit hairy, and I do feel like, and I have no real what's the word I want? I have no real basis to back this up, except for like the eye test, which, as we all know, is a flawed way to watch the game if you're just kind of using your own biases. But it felt like the Penguins had like flurries of extremely high danger chances, and then it kind of settled down for a bit. And then there was another flurry of extremely high danger chances from Pittsburgh, and then it settled down a little bit. And like, the Blue Jackets had their own high danger chances. Like, again, I thought the stats don't support it, but I thought Shilov's had a pretty good game. Obviously he wasn't great in the shootout, and I think he'd probably like at least one of those goals back, probably the Zach Aston-Reese one. But you know, he made a lot of really solid saves, again, especially in the end of the third period and also in overtime. He made a great save in overtime. He made point blank saves on Kent Johnson and on Adam Fantilli within about 45 seconds of each other. When the Penguins were looking for that tying goal. And then after the Penguins scored the tying goal, he also made a really great save on Kent Johnson with about I want to say like 45 seconds left. So again, the numbers don't support it, but I thought Shilov's shootout aside had a pretty good game. But I also thought Elvis had a really good game as well. That's, I believe, I might be wrong about this, that might be 3 straight games for Elvis with an above 900 save percentage. No, only 2. But he was great in Vancouver. I thought he was good against Pittsburgh. It sounds like he's going to get the start against Ottawa in the next game, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Overall, like I said, lots of things I liked in this game. One thing I really liked, and I want to talk about this, and I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, is I want to dive into the penalty kill, which I thought was excellent against the Penguins, and has been slowly improving over the past couple of games. So we'll take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll talk about special teams for the Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Factor, because I don't know about you, I love to cook, but I never have time anymore, right? But I want to eat better. I don't want to spend hours grocery shopping, meal prepping. Like, I love to cook, but when I don't have the time, it becomes such a chore. And I'm busy these days. Good news, though. Factor makes it super easy for me to eat well and not do what I did prior to Factor, which was mostly eat a lot of like hummus and veggie dip and just kind of call it a night. So now I use Factor. They've got quality functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, healthy fats. There's no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no seed oils, just real food that fits your goals, whether that's eating healthier, managing calories, getting more protein. Like I said, I love that Factor is here for when I'm too busy to cook. You just throw it in the microwave, ready in about 2 minutes. And like, I was kind of skeptical because I've eaten a lot of microwave meals in my life and none of them have been very good. But Factor, I was genuinely shocked by how good they tasted. Like, they tasted like they were genuinely home cooked, as opposed to, like I said, just something you throw in the microwave. And that's big for me. I've eaten a lot of bad food in my life. I'm in my 30s now. I am too old to eat bad food. So that's why I've really been enjoying Factor instead of, cup noodles or instant Kraft mac and cheese. You can do what I do. Head to factormeals.com/lockedonNHL50 off and use code lockedonNHL50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's factormeals.com/LOCKEDONNHL50 off. Code lockedonNHL50 off. Make healthy eating easy with Factor. Welcome back to Locked on Blue Jackets. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every single day. And thanks for making us the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked on Blue Jacket, which is compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every other major podcasting app you can think of. We've got a members-only Discord server as well, which is basically just like a big, fun group chat that we hang out in. Go to lockedonbluejackets.supercast.com, and for $5 a month or $50 a year, you can get all of these things. Plus, I forgot to mention, an exclusive merch store. So if you want to rock the Locked On merch that you see me wearing sometimes on this show, you can do that as well. Go to lockedonbluejackets.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Let's talk about the special teams. And specifically, I want to talk about the penalty kill because I'm going to pull up the numbers that I tweeted about a couple of days ago just to make sure that I have the exact numbers right, because the penalty kill didn't look good in that game against Calgary, right? Like, I think that's fair to say. I thought the penalty kill last night was excellent. It's so Blue Jackets, by the way, to allow 3 power play goals on 3 attempts for the 32nd ranked power play in the league, and then kill off all 3 power play attempts from the second best power play in the league. Like, just extremely Blue Jackets, like deeply unserious team, deeply unserious sport. But in that first game against Calgary, which was Rick Bonus's first game, the Blue Jackets had, they allowed 11 shot attempts and 8 shots and allowed 3 goals. Not great, right? In game 2 against Vancouver, which was Bonus's second game, they had a shot, they allowed 7 shot attempts against, had 1 for. The shots were 5-1 Vancouver on the power play, which makes sense. And they allowed 1 goal on, I think, 2 attempts, which is a marked improvement, right? Against Pittsburgh, the shot attempts were 7-4 in favor of Pittsburgh, which again makes sense. You should be out shooting someone when you're on the power play. The shots were 4-3 though in favor of Pittsburgh. So the Blue Jackets basically had the same amount of shots as them, -1, and they didn't allow a single goal. So they've gone from allowing 8 shots on goal in the space of, I think it came out to about 5 minutes of penalty kill time against the Flames, to allowing 4 shots on goal and no goals in 6 full minutes of power play time against the Penguins. That's a real improvement, right? Something else that I wanted to point out, just in terms of, while I'm looking at the stats here, is against Vancouver, Ivan Provorov played about, I think it was 1 minute and 9 seconds of penalty kill time and allowed 0 shot attempts. 0, nothing that could even be considered anything close to a scoring chance. And then in the game last night, or the game on Saturday night, against the Penguins, he was actually on the ice for more shot attempts for than he was against. So while he was on the penalty kill, the Blue Jackets actually had a 3-1 shot attempt advantage, while Provorov was on the ice, which is, that I'm not a huge fan of Provorov. That's great. That is a really good sign. If he manages to keep that up, and again, I know it's a small sample size, but, and I don't know that it is Provorov directly driving this turnaround for the penalty kill, considering he's been there all season and has not had results this good, right? But that's a big improvement. I think that was a huge factor in the penalty kill in this game. Erik Gudbranson was also pretty good in this game. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me. Let's see if I can pull them up. But I think he allowed 2 shot attempts while he was on the ice for the penalty kill. Let me pull it up real quick. So while he was on the ice, Erik Gudbranson played 3 minutes and 4 seconds of the penalty kill, and was only allowed 3 shot attempts. So about 1 shot attempt a minute, which I am kind of fine with, I think, in terms of the numbers. But that's, again, it's worlds different from 2 games ago, when there were players allowing, 6-7 shot attempts individually while on the penalty kill. So that's a good sign. That's a promising sign. Damon Severson also had a hilarious stat number in terms of defense. He played 2 minutes 22, and the shot attempts were 4-2 in favor of the Penguins. So I don't understand, but I do enjoy it. So like I said, if they can figure out the penalty kill, this is going to be big. The power play wasn't great against the Penguins. The Blue Jackets did not muster a ton. Let me see here. Charlie Coyle, I believe, led all Blue Jackets on power play time, and there was only didn't register a shot attempt. The Blue Jackets in one. Where is their power play numbers? Here we go. They got 2 penalties total, or 2 power plays total. One of which I believe was split between the second period and the third period. But the Blue Jackets only managed to muster 2 shot attempts in that 4 minutes. And they all came from the second unit, the Jenner, Severson, Voronkov, Provorov, Monahan unit. The top unit, Fantilli, Coyle, Johnson, Marchenko, Werenski, they actually allowed more shot attempts against than they did for. So while they were on the ice, the Penguins had 1 shot attempt, and the Blue Jackets, with the top unit on the ice in that space of, again, Charlie Coyle played 3:19, Adam Fantilli played 3:15, Ken Johnson played 3:12. Not a single shot attempt to be found. So not great. The power play it struggled in this game, and I think that's fair to say. I would like it to look better, but if they can figure out the penalty kill, then I think many of the warts will be covered, because I do think that the penalty kill has been a specific and repeated area of weakness for this team. I don't know if this is just a hot penalty kill. We've seen it before this season. They've had stretches where, they've gone 18, 19 penalty kills without allowing a goal. But the marked improvement since Bonus came in or specifically since Everson left, kind of makes me think, okay, is it going to keep improving, or, we'll see ebbs and flows. That's how hockey works. But if they can consistently get a league average penalty kill, this team's prospects immediately look much, much better, which is great. Would love if they could get both special teams firing at the same time. I feel like they really can only get one. Like, if they do well on the penalty kill, they don't do well on the power play, and vice versa. Would love to see both special teams firing on all cylinders at the same time, but hey, I don't want to ask for too much at once, right? Let's get the penalty kill rolling, and then maybe we can figure out how to get the power play back on track. I'm going to take another quick break, and then I want to talk about the injury luck that this team continues to have, as they lost another defenseman against Pittsburgh, and it sounds like he's going to be out for not a long time, but a couple games at least. So let's talk about Dante Fabbro and the Blue Jackets injury luck in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to tell you about Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Quo makes everything super simple, right? Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster, more personal. It works right from your phone or your computer, and you can even keep your existing phone number at the same time as well. They automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about the injury situation, which the defense is getting a little thin. Erik Gudbranson is back, which is fine. I have no real feelings for or against Gudbranson as a player. I think he is a perfectly cromulent third pairing guy, as long as they play him like that. He played a ton in the Penguins game because the Blue Jackets went down. I think Dante Fabbro, I think he left like halfway through the first period. He did not play a lot at all. Had the ice time up and then immediately lost it because this is Locked On Blue Jackets. Dante Fabbro only played 4.5 minutes in this game, 6 shift total. And even with that, Erik Gudbranson still didn't crack the 20-minute mark. He played 19:50, which is kind of the upper end for him. For me, like I would love to see him play like 17 or 18 minutes maximum. But with 5D out there, I get it. But having him back he is an NHL body. And I think he is an upgrade on, for example, Dyson Mayo, who has been in and out of the lineup this season. I don't know that he's an upgrade against Jake Christensen necessarily, but that's a whole other thing. And with Dante Fabbro going out due to an injury, it sounds like Jake Christensen is going to be coming back into the lineup anyway. So Dante Matejchuk's still out, but they're hopeful he's going to be back soon. Apparently, they avoided the worst case scenario with Dante Fabbro. He did leave the game on crutches. I heard that he left PPG Paint Arena on crutches, which is not like the most promising, but it sounds like he is going to be out for about a week, which I think is only 3 games. I think it's the Tuesday game against Ottawa, and then they have, I think, a game on Thursday and then another game on Saturday, but I don't have the schedule up in front of me. But the blue line is looking really, really thin without Matejchuk and without Fabbro, because there's arguably two of your 4 best defensemen. I don't know that I would consider Fabbro one of the top 4 defensemen this season, but with both of those guys out, then you've got Werenski-Severson as a top pairing, which I don't hate necessarily. Severson has been a really good second pair guy for the team this season, and he has had success with Werenski in the past. So I don't hate it as a short-term option. longer than a week, I'm going to start getting twitchy, I think. Below that, things start to get kind of spicy. So you've got Provorov and Gabranson as the second pairing, which, as much as I have just talked about how good Provorov has been on the penalty kill, that is not a promising pairing. That is something that makes me nervous. Neither of them are particularly fast. I will say that Gabranson typically stays back, whereas Provorov goes on adventures. So, like, hopefully Gabranson's smart enough to try and cover for Provorov. But my guess is that that's not going to be a particularly dynamic pairing. And then you got Jake Christensen and Igor Zamula on the bottom pairing, which is kind of a, listen, play 12 minutes, try not to lose your minutes too badly. But when you lose someone like Matejchuk, that has a big impact. I think Fabbro's been filling in admirably over the past couple of games for Matejchuk. He's out injured, and now you're really testing the mid-range depth of this defense, because obviously the Blue Jackets, like, Zach Werenski is elite, right? Dante Matejchuk is having a great season. Severson has been acceptable. Provorov has had his moments. When you start losing guys like Matejchuk and then Fabbro, Fabbro, I think, might be one of those guys that bounces back under bonus when he's back in the lineup, because I do think he was a guy that maybe got into Dean Everson's doghouse a little bit and didn't ever really manage to find his way out of it. Because it makes no sense to me that you look at the results you got from him last year and then you look at this year and you're like, well, like, what changed? I do think he had the yips at the beginning of the season, but I don't know what changed. So I'll be interested to see if Fabbro is one of those guys that, like Kent Johnson, gets a much longer leash under bonus and really, really flourishes in that role. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's kind of my hope anyway. So I don't know what the defense is going to be an adventure next game, I think. I'm not sure how I feel about it kind of as a whole. Werenski's probably going to play upwards of 27 or 28 minutes. I was surprised that he didn't break 30 in the game against Pittsburgh. He did play 37 shifts, which is a lot of shifts, but he only played 29-18. I really thought he was going to break 30 easily, especially with it going past regulation. But he played 29. Damon Severson actually played 28:06, which is surprising, but I think earned. And Ivan Provorov played 27:07. So there's your ice time, right? Is those three guys each played half the game, and everyone else kind of filled in. But that is one of the things I am worried about with the Senators game, is what is this defense going to look like? Especially if, as it sounds like, whether they're not going to have Matejchuk or Fabbro for this game. Neither of them skated today. So we'll see. It might be Werenski-Severson against the world. I don't know. I also want to talk about Dmitri Voronkov real quick, who was not... He did not play a lot in this game. He played 8:57, which is the least ice time. Actually, I was going to say the least ice time. Zach Aston Reese actually played less than Dmitri Voronkov, which is kind of surprising to me. Because Voronkov did not see a lot of ice time, especially later in the game, which I was surprised at first, and then I kind of thought about it a little bit, and I was like, well, one of the things that Rick Bowness says is play with speed, right? He wants to play fast. He hates when people play slow. Dmitri Voronkov is not the fleetest of foot, let's say. He is a very effective player at what he does. He is never going to be the fastest guy there. Like, he just isn't, right? I'm trying to pull up his numbers, but like, he only played one shift in the third period and didn't play in overtime at all. Oh no, excuse me, he played a short shift. So he played two shifts. One was the end of the power play, and then he played one other short shift with Aston Reese and Brendan Gaunce at the like kind of mid-ish point of the third period. But that's it. Again, didn't see the ice in overtime, which again, I'm kind of fine with because he's not a player that's built for overtime. But I was kind of surprised to see him bounced for Heinen, who I thought was only okay in this game. And, you know, like, I get it. I really do. He has one 5-on-5 point in his last 6 games. He is not a player that I think Rick Bowness really knows what to do with right now. But I will say there was an interesting quote from Bowness after practice, and I don't know if I can find it. Here we go. Rick Bowness said he talked to Dmitri Voronkov today. We're very clear with what we need from him. He had some good reads defensively. We'd like to see a little bit more offense from him. He remains on the second power play unit, but played a season low 8:57 on Monday when Dante Fabbro moved up. He is practicing on the fourth line right now with Gaunson, Aston Reese. I don't love this as a concept. And I've talked about this before, right? I've talked about it, I don't know when I've last talked about it, but I talked about this a lot when, Ken Johnson was getting buried in the bottom six. And again, similarly with Chinakhov, right, is you tell players that you want more offense from them, and then you put them in a situation where they're not going to get that offense, right? Like the fourth line just simply doesn't create a lot of offense. I know that they had a good game against Pittsburgh. They scored two out of the three goals, right? So, obviously you do get offense happening on the fourth line, and some of Kent Johnson's better games under Everson was on the fourth line. I don't know whether that was just that he was playing easier minutes, or whether it was, just a desperate chance to try and move up in the lineup, which, clearly didn't work out. But I don't love when players are told they need more offense and then move down the lineup. Like it feels really counterintuitive to me to say to someone, hey, we want more of this thing from you, but we're going to make it harder for you to get this thing. Like that's really frustrating. Especially when you say that Dmitri Voronkov, he had good reads defensively. So if the issue is the offense and not the defense, like I can see if a player is good offensively, but kind of lacking defensively, that you move him down the lineup. Like that makes sense to me. But wanting more offense from a player and then putting him in fewer situations to create that offense is confusing to me. I've seen a lot of people kind of worrying that this is the beginning of the end for Dmitri Voronkov. Obviously, he's been a good player for the Blue Jackets this season. He's kind of streaky. He's got 16 goals on the season, I think. 7 of them have been on the power play. He's leading the team with power play goals right now. He did have I know that I just talked about him not being an overtime kind of play. He did have that overtime game-winning goal against Utah, which I'd forgotten about until literally 12 seconds ago. But I'm not worried yet. I think one demotion is not the be-all and end-all, right? This is not automatically going to turn into a Chinakhov situation, which I've seen a couple of people talking about. Like, oh, this is the beginning of the end. The next step is a healthy scratch, and then we know where it goes from there. Like, Dmitri Voronkov, I feel like is a player that can play in both the top 6 and the bottom 6. He can play a heavier role. I still would have put him back up on the top line with Marchenko and Fantilli. I thought that was a good line that worked. I haven't loved Sillinger there. He's been a great third guy, but he kind of feels very much like he is just kind of there, and Fantilli and Marchenko are doing the heavy lifting. Voronkov was still the third guy on that line, but did, I think, contribute a lot more to that. So I personally would have reconnected that line, and also the Coyle, Olivier, Sillinger line that was very solid for the Blue Jackets in the kind of the first half of the season. So I don't know. We'll see what Rick Bowness is thinking. I don't think this is anything like dire for Voronkov. I don't love it. Like I'm not going to sit here and say that this was the right choice. I don't love it, but I'm not worried about it yet. Right? Bowness is still figuring out how the team works. He's still figuring out who plays well together. I don't think this is a case of him just burying Voronkov on the fourth line. I also think that a lot of the problems that we had with Everson and Chinakhov and Johnson, etc., was the lack of communication. And it seems like Bowness is kind of the opposite of that, right? I don't know how effective the communication is going to be. My hope is that there was a translator there. To really make sure that everyone kind of understands what's being said, because no disrespect to Dmitri Voronkov, but as we saw last season with that 10-minute misconduct, like sometimes his grasp of the English language is, he misses the nuance sometimes, right? So as long as Bowness is open, keeping that line of communication open, and more importantly, telling him what he needs from him, instead of just being like, hey, we play better, because I guess that's a lot of what Blue Jackets were told prior to the Bowness hiring, is just, hey, why don't you just play better and then you'll get more ice time. But Bowness keeping a line of communication open. If it gets to like 4 or 5 games time and they're still burying Voronkov kind of on the 4th line or healthy scratching him, then maybe we'll have to have a different conversation about this. But I'm willing to give Bowness the benefit of the doubt for now. For now is very key in that sentence. I had big plans to talk about the Senators game that's happening tomorrow as of the time of recording this, but I didn't have time to do that. So I guess what we're going to do is we'll do a little bonus episode. This I think is actually going to, well, you'll know when this comes out because you'll be listening to it. But tomorrow morning, we'll talk about the Ottawa Senators and how they're doing and how the Blue Jackets can beat them and all that good stuff. Thank you for listening to this episode, making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets, it continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube. Join the Everydayers Club if you haven't already. You get ad-free episodes, access to Discord, which is a lot of fun. You get access to a exclusive merch store, and all for only $5 a month, which, frankly, in this day and age, is less than a coffee. I'm not going to sit here and judge anyone for their $7 lattes because I am also a $7 latte guy. But $5 a month for a podcast that you enjoy, I would hope, is not too much to not spend. So if you feel like you want to spend $5 and get out from underneath the ad fatigue that I know a lot of people are struggling with, lockedonbluejackets.supercast.com is where you can go for that. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTEI. You can find the show at LO_Blue on Twitter and LO-Blue Jackets on Blue Sky. Thank you once again for listening. Enjoy this bonus episode that I didn't know was going to be a bonus episode. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about the Senators and how to win game 5 in a row, which is very exciting. We'll do all of that tomorrow morning. Until then, make sure you stay locked on.